it was a lot. It was a non-stop year, and it ended. It ended with a play on Broadway with Chris Walken, and then Anthony Mackie, Zoe Kazan, amazing Martin McDonough play. My first Broadway play, and then I went straight into it.
Is this the Lieutenant of Innish?
No, this is a new play called Beheading in Spokane, and then I just finished up Cowboys and Aliens with Jon Favreau, who we did Iron Man together. So it's been a hell of a year. I think there was a little time off right after Iron Man, and getting ready for the play, and but yeah, it was the Iron Man, the Betty Ann thing came about. The Conviction, it came about right before Iron Man. I wasn't going to do anything before Iron Man, and then Conviction just sort of popped up.
All right, so this story, obviously based on a true story.
Yeah.
But what you managed to do in this role is rather extraordinary, which is to take a guy who's a piece of work, to say the least. And this is what you do in all of your roles. This is what I love about you. You're willing to be warts and all. You're willing to be, this asshole, but you make us care about him anyway. That's
nice of you to say. Thanks.
Can you describe this character who you're playing?
Well, he's a real person, so that's the first thing, and it's based on a true story, and so there's that responsibility, and then there's just his archetype in a kind of a classical sense is kind of like a Johnny boy in Mean Streets, or he's like Mercutio in Romeo and Juliet. He's a classic. There's lots of elements, because every story's been told. Every character's been played, and everything's a version of something else. There's a little measure for measure in there, and yet there's this real guy too. So you got to learn the accent and do the research to sort of embody the essence of the guy, and then it's up to your imagination, and he's oddly heroic in an anti-hero kind of way. I think.
Agree. Because he's innocent, but we're not sure for a long time. The movie plays out, our with us, the audience, keeping us a little bit in suspense as to whether or not this guy, he was capable of doing something, because he was capable of being a criminal in some ways.
Yeah.
Very rebellious.
Absolutely, and he had some minor stuff happen as a juvenile. So he is a real tough. He's the real guy was a rumbler. But he was also really charismatic and complicated, like real people are.
So you spent a lot of time with the real guy?
No, the real guy passed away, but I saw a lot of tapes of him, and I listened to audio tapes of him with an attorney that were very helpful, and a lot of stories were told to me by the relatives. So I extracted from all that,
So the essence of this is the relationship between the brother and the sister.
Yeah.
Can you explain why they're so close and why she believes in him so much?
I think it's a brother and sister bond. Of course, not all brothers and sisters are like that, but I think because they were in foster homes and they went through so much together as kids.
A lot of familial abuse.
Yeah, that I think it's a lot like. I remember reading an article. I did a war film, and I read this article called "Men at War," I think it was called, and it was really useful. And I remember it was about why, soldiers come home, and the guy writing the article was a former Vietnam vet, but he was also a screenplay writer, and he talked about how people wouldn't return his phone calls in L.A. and he compared that to the bond that men have in war. Like men will literally jump on a hand grenade friend, you know, and he says that bond, and I just thought that was extraordinary. You know, and that bond, and then you go to like Hollywood. He compared it to Hollywood, and the sort of, you know, the way people don't. There's not that kind of bond, you know, and so I liken that to Betty Ann and Kenny, and they're kind of. I think because their childhood was so rough and they were there for each other, I think there was a bond not unlike two men at war or two women at war or whatever, you know. I think I liken it to that.
So your character is put in jail for a crime that he insists he did not commit.
Yeah.
And she believes in him. No one else does, but she does.
Yeah.
And she goes to the ends of the earth. In other words, you know, threatens her own marriage, threatens her own, you know, takes great sacrifice personally to save him.
Yeah.
And really helps to sort of keep him going. You know, the stuff that, you know, where you're inside and you're just going through the tortures of the damned. You know, can you talk about what it was like for him in there and what she did to keep him going?
Yeah, I mean, I read some letters that Kenny wrote to Betty Ann, and you know, I talked to Betty Ann a lot about it, but it's hard to imagine, you know, being in prison. It's kind of one of my worst nightmares.